Welcome back. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people. Only a couple of days out from being on the new set. News from yesterday. Dustin Brown announced that he will retire at the conclusion of the playoffs. Which, I mean, it's not a huge surprise, but still, it is something. Brown had an amazing career. Definitely a career video once his playoffs are done. We'll see how the Kings do in said playoffs. Might be a rallying cry for them, right? For Dustin Brown and all that. It was a nice moment too after last night's Canucks game, where the team and the Kings as well stayed on the ice, and everybody shook hands with Dustin Brown and wished him well. And then finally, he kind of ushered his team off, like, "Come on, let's go." He probably just wanted to get going, and it probably took him aback a little bit that Vancouver fans were cheering him in that moment, because Dustin Brown has not always been cheered by Vancouver Canuck fans. But yeah, I wish him all the best, really do, and it'll be fun to do a career video on him because quite the career indeed for Dustin Brown. Florida news. This is one of those good news, bad news situations, right? So the President's Trophy discussion is back, and this year Florida wins it. Now, the good news is that this is the sixth different team that's won it in the last 6 years. The bad news is none of the previous five won the Stanley Cup. The last one to win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup was the Chicago Blackhawks in 2013. So Florida's going to be trying to change that. Now, last year was Colorado. Colorado finishing second this year. Does that mean they win the Cup? Maybe. 2017, Washington wins the President's Trophy. They won the Cup in 2018. Nashville still got all those banners and pennants, and good on them. Tampa Bay 2019, of course, famously they flamed out in the first round. They won the Cup in 2020 and 2021. Boston won it in 2020. Not a lot out of them in 2021. So we'll see if this is Colorado's year then, and then if it is, then we have a whole new discussion to have about the President's Trophy, and does it foretell that you're going to win the Cup later? Or I guess if Boston or Nashville were to win the Stanley Cup, sure, for them as well. But yeah, for Florida, this is going to be the first time that they've been bona fide favorites to win a Stanley Cup, and one of the preeminent favorites. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm very interested in how the playoffs are going to turn out this year, because it does feel like we have 16 really good teams. Because 16 teams don't make it, that definitely makes it look like it's more exclusive for the 16 that do. Calgary Flames, pretty just ridiculous numbers when it comes to goal scorers right now. We have 16 guys at 40 goals. We may have more than 16 by the end of tonight. So 3 of them are from the Calgary Flames. So they have 3 40-goal scorers. It's Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau. They are the second team in the last 25 years to have 3 40-goal scorers. The last one was the 2018-2019 Tampa Bay Lightning, who had Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov. So we are definitely in a scorers-friendly era. And I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. I know that when you look at the dead puck era and how frustrating it was for skilled players back then, this is a much better option. Minnesota news, some good news. Dumba and Spurgeon both return tonight. It's an important game for Minnesota, so you want to have all hands on deck. Zuccarello, though, is still out, so that will affect their attack, but at least their blue line is pretty darn close to healthy at this point, and that's important heading into the playoffs. Now, for Pittsburgh, the news isn't quite as positive. For Pittsburgh, the news is thusly that Jarry's still listed as week to week, and there's some belief he may not be ready for the start of the playoffs. So Casey DeSmith might be the goaltender of record for Pittsburgh, at the very least to start the playoffs off. We'll see if that is the case, but without Jarry, that is going to hurt. That being said, DeSmith's played well lately. He really has. So it then becomes a question of, can he get hot in the playoffs, especially if they do end up against the Rangers, which is Shesterkin, of course. But other than that, the other option is Florida, where you have a team that scores more than 4 goals a game on average. So for Pittsburgh, there's really the option of the team that plays that defensive style like the Rangers, or that team with the just ridiculous spring-loaded offense in Florida. And how does that ridiculous spring-loaded offense work in the playoffs? Can you do the same thing in the playoffs? Traditionally, not really, but who knows? Florida's been taking tradition and just kind of just saying, we want to have 80s night every night. We'll see. Toronto is clearly not seeing this game against Boston as a really, really important game, because if they were, it would not be a lineup where you've got Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Campbell all in the press box watching. So, at the very least, Boston's got a very good chance of coming out with 2 points from Toronto because you've got that many guys who are out. And of course, that could set up a matchup between Boston and Toronto in the first round if Tampa loses tonight. So we'll see how that all turns out. But for Toronto, a lot of guys sitting. I'm sure that makes your tickets cheaper for tonight's game, right? So if you're going to a Leafs game and if they say, oh, well, we're not dressing Marner, Matthews, Tavares, Campbell, you know what? Take 20% back off your tickets. We'll just hand you the... No, that's not how it works. So, Carolina news, Anderson and Raanta will share the Jennings Trophy this year. It's interesting, too, because if you go back far enough in NHL history, you find out the Vezina Trophy, what it was, is what the Jennings Trophy is now. It's the goaltender with the lowest goals against average. So it is interesting looking at it that way. And then you have to ask the question of, did the best goaltender win the Vezina every year? Or because it was goals against average that drove who won it, is it more of a team award back then and more of a goaltender award now? So it's an interesting idea. And again, the Jennings is a trophy that no one talks about at this stage. And yet we talk about Vezina Trophy wins for guys from before. I think it was 1982 they changed it. I've done videos on the rule change and why it happened. And basically, the Montreal Canadiens screwed it up for everybody else in the early 80s. And the NHL said, yeah, we've got to change this. But anyways, yeah, Anderson and Raanta will share the award, and I think it's a great story because Anderson has been a nice, I wouldn't say reclamation, but it's been a nice story of redemption for him, and a bit of both for Raanta as well. When there were some questions being asked of this duo at the start of the year, they've answered them all, and in the positive. Re-signing news. So as we come out of the regular season, immediately the article starts showing up about UFAs whose contracts are up, and rightfully so. We have some very, very talented players who do not have contracts for next season. And what's interesting is Darren Dreger reporting on two things here. First off, the New York Rangers want to aggressively pursue keeping Andrew Kopp. They do not want to lose Andrew Kopp. This is why I was surprised Winnipeg traded him. I think Andrew Kopp's a really good player, and he's not that old. So for Andrew Kopp, I would think that, it's going to be interesting to see how much he's worth because he's a 20-goal scorer right now. Is he a 20-goal scorer next year? No idea. But the hard work is there. He does a little bit of everything. He can play any role in your lineup. He can play up and down the lineup. Really, I understand why the Rangers immediately decided they wanted to keep him, and that's great. I like it when a rental becomes an actual trade, right? And then the Oilers want to keep Kane. They like what Evander Kane's done for their attack. Clearly, they needed a sniper on the wing. He has been that for them. And I guess this is a sign that so far there haven't been any problems with Kane. And yeah, so I guess they're looking at an extension. And then the question becomes, for how much and for how long? What is he going to want? So that's going to be one to watch as well. And then Travis Yost on TSN has an article on how the NHL should go to a 10-minute overtime because that would probably do away with the shootout altogether. I don't think the NHLPA would go for a 10-minute overtime. Ideally, we would just have overtime. Ideally, like you look at baseball, you have a 20-inning game. You got to get it done. Basketball, yeah, you can go to 3 or 4 overtimes. And in those sports in North America, you have wins or losses, and that's it. Ideally, the NHL would have the same thing. You win the game, you get 2 points. You lose the game, you get none. That's it. Makes the records a lot cleaner, and it makes it a lot easier to just visually see, oh, okay, so this team is close to passing this one. But for the NHL, I don't know that the 10-minute overtime is going to work. I don't think that players would sign off on that because there's a lot of games that go to overtime, so it could add substantial amounts of time to each game. And then the other side of that too is, they have flight schedules and everything. I mean, it's one of those just nitpicks, but could they come out and say, that we already have enough issues with this and that? That's not worth it. But a 10-minute overtime, I've always thought would be nice. I just don't see it happening. And again, I get it. I get why players are like, look, we're already exhausted. The schedule's already brutal as it is. A longer overtime would be a no-go because for a change like that, it has to be both the league and the players that would sign off on it. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Would a 10-minute overtime interest you? Would it still be 3-on-3, or would you have to then go 4-on-4? Because 3-on-3, you could just wipe everybody out. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support all the way through. I will talk to you again soon.